Hey folks, this is my first YouTube video, so I'll give you a quick intro about me and my deck. I'm Vicente Mahfouz from Brazil. I'm 40 years old and I've been into Magic the Gathering since my teenage years. I got into Legacy with Blue Dredge 5 years ago. Supposedly just an entry-level deck, right? But I got hooked and never looked elsewhere. Well, that's not entirely true. Maybe once when I built the first Madness deck lists. But, well, I'm a Dredge player by heart. I've been crafting competitive Dredge lists with or without Lion's Eye Diamond, sometimes aiming to be more budget-friendly for new Legacy players. And finally, last year, I built Blue Dredge, this deck that we are checking out today. I have won a tournament with it. I set up a Patreon about it. It is gaining traction worldwide, and but it is still kind of under the radar for many players, so maybe this is the perfect choice to you to catch your friends off guard at your local game store, or maybe even win some serious tournaments. And this video was supposed to be published today as exclusive Patreon content, but I decided to release it here on YouTube for free, so all of you can see the deck in action right now. For this reason, you will notice that I don't go into as much detail about the deck at the beginning of the video, but you can check out my Patreon later to dredge deep into the deck if you want to. I truly hope you enjoy it. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and let's dredge. Hi guys, I'm back after a break. I needed to stop doing some things to put my work in order and my personal life as well. But now I'm back and I'm good to go. I'm playing our favorite deck, Blue Dredge, of course. At least my favorite deck. This deck is always a blast to play. And there are no difference, nothing significant here, no significant changes between what I'm playing today and what I played last year. Now I'm playing 2 Mindbreak traps in the sideboard because online we have more and more Storm variants, and our deck is kind of fragile against Storm, especially when we are on the draw. So now I'm playing Mindbreak Trap. This card is also good against the Cascade decks, not Rhino's Cascade decks, but the Mississippi River. This is a new deck that sometimes online we have many new players trying to goldfish with combo decks, and so this is kind of an insurance against those decks, and all of the other 73 cards are the same. So let's go for a Legacy League and see how the deck goes this year, 2024. I'm not sure if you noticed that many content creators have had some new videos playing Blue Dredge last month. Players like MahfuzVanGogh and Phil Gallagher and other content creators try to understand Blue Dredge, and I'm glad that this deck is getting more and more popular. So we are playing against Scott Official. This hand, we are on the draw. This hand is nothing so special. If Scott is playing some combo deck, we can force and then Cabal Therapy ourselves, but this hand is nothing, actually nothing special here. He is mulliganing, so I'm kind of... We are on the draw, we will have 1 extra card. Okay, let's skip this. Let's skip it. Let's not overthink this now. This is not a good keep, but we can keep this, especially on the draw. I would be more inclined to keep this hand if Golgari Thug was a Grave Troll, and if one of these bridges were another land, for example. But let's try this hand. My opponent plays Chrome Mox. Oh, my opponent is playing Reanimator, okay. So maybe we need to force something this turn. I will let this resolve, just because we don't have a second Careful Study. So if we had another blue card here, okay, this is great. Now what? Do I cast this Careful Study now? If I just Cabal Therapy myself, I will have 1, 2, 3, 6 cards. Maybe 7 if I force, and then I can crack Cephalic Coliseum, but I will reveal that to my opponent that I have Force of Will. Again, let's not overthink this. We have a layer of protection with Force of Will, so I will just Cabal Therapy myself here, even if my opponent knows that I'm holding Force of Will in my hand. Again, with even a Stink Within here would be so much better than Tug, but we have what we have. Golgari Thug. And I will probably force anything that our opponent plays here, just to have the opportunity to crack Cephalic Elysium next turn. Nothing? Okay. So my opponent will not go for it, and we will put Golgari Thug and then play Cephalic Elysium and pass the turn. Oh, I can play Golgari Thug here and Cabal Therapy my opponent. Maybe this is good because we have 2 Cabal Therapies. This is not so great to advance our own game plan, but it is a good control tool. We have 2 looks to our opponent's hand. And then we cast Otherworldly Gaze in our upkeep. So, unfortunately, Golgari Thug needs to see himself here, because it's the only creature we have in our graveyard. Now what? My opponent has an Exhume here. Animate Dead, maybe? Animate Dead or Reanimate. Or even Shallow Grave, because this is an unmarked grave. Okay, since we have 2 looks, I will say Reanimate first, because it's a common card. Animate Dead, okay. So let's take this Animate Dead from my opponent's hand. And my opponent has an Unmask. So if he wants to take my Force of Will from my hand, he needs to spend his whole turn. He didn't, and now we will cast Otherworldly Gaze. We can put everything in our graveyard. And Dredge 4. Hogak, this is not really good. I will be happier with other cards, but that's okay. We can crack Cephalic Elysium next turn, and we still have Force of Will. Our opponent has Unmask and 2 unknown cards. Cycling Troll, okay. Playing Swamp. And passing the turn. So let's create this line here. I will have a natural draw here, because I want an extra blue card so I can cast this Careful Study in the future, instead of cracking Cephalic Elysium on my upkeep. So here is a gamble, of course, but since we are ahead this game, I think this is a good idea. So now I'll crack my first Cephalic Elysium. I could also cast Golgari Thug and Unmask again, but actually this can be good. I can cast Golgari Thug, cast my 3rd Cabal Therapy. Yeah, my 3rd Cabal Therapy, targeting my opponent's naming Unmask. Thug sees Hogak, Hogak goes back on top, and then I'll just pass the turn. No, yeah, no, I think this is too much. Let's just crack 1 Coliseum here. Yeah, I think this is better. Yeah, now we can discard 1, 2, 3 cards. And we found another Coliseum to go nuts next turn. We can even cast Careful Study if we think that Careful Study is not needed anymore. Or maybe my opponent casts Unmask here. Gadim's Awakening. Okay, so I'm not familiar with this build of Reanimator. My opponent will take Force of Will and then reanimate Archon of Cruelty. Noticeably, this is not the end of the world for us, because we can discard cards. This is a clock, but we will find Narcomoebas to block Archon, and we will make a zombie army. The problem with this card is that our opponent will draw 1 extra card each turn. This is a problem, because they can find, yeah, like an Animate Dead to take our Hogak. If we kill this Hogak anyway, it will get us some zombies. So now since we have another Careful Study, we can just Dredge 4 here. Yeah, Narcomoeba, we love that. And now, do we have another Underground Sea? And do we want to play this Flooded Strand? I think the answer is no. So, yeah, so we probably don't want to take this Flooded Strand, I guess. let's see. 1 underground sea, 2 basic island. We still have 1 extra underground in our deck. If we fetch, it's a 1 point of damage. If we play Cephalic Coliseum and use it for mana, this represents 1 damage as well. So maybe it's better to just fetch Flooded Strand here and crack 1 Cephalic Coliseum. Actually, we will start with Careful Study here. It's important to start with Careful Study because we don't have that many dredgers. So if this happens, we will have more chances to chain or dredging with drawing 3 cards with Cephalic Coliseum, dredging 3 times, thrice, instead of twice. So now the Cephalic Coliseum is a better activation, has a better activation, and we will dredge Bonkers. We will discard 1, 2, and 3. Now we can cast Dredge Return just to put Think with Imp or Golgari Grief Troll. Here we have our 4 bridges, so this Dredge Return represents 12 zombies. I kind of wanted to have 2 flyers to block Archon, but I can also just dredge 5 and cast a Think with Imp next turn. So I think the play is Dredge Return and Instinct with Imp, sacrificing 3 Narcomoebas. And remember, if we block Hogak, we will have 4 zombies, not our opponent, of course. Because Hogak is our creature and Hogak will be put in our graveyard. So we could cast Cabal Therapy just to have more zombies, but I think this is enough. So let's... we have how many eco reads? 1, 2. Okay, so we are good to go. Just passing the turn here. And next turn our play is just dredging 5 and casting Instinct with Imp. Our opponent will attack. Let's see if our opponent will attack with Hogak. I think they don't. They shouldn't. Oh, they will attack with Hogak. Okay. So let's just press F6 here. We will sacrifice a zombie token and discard a Golgari Thug. Now, do we block Archon of Cruelty? I'm not sure, because if we block Archon of Cruelty, our opponent can just reanimate it again. And we are good to go. So I think we will block Hogak with 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4 zombies. These 4 zombies will be another 4 zombies when we kill Hogak. 1, 2, 3. Hogak is a 7/8. 1, 2, 3. If I block here, yeah. If I block like this, I will have 8 zombies. If I block here, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, if I block like this, I'll have 8 zombies here for my trouble. Actually 6 more zombies, so I'll have 15 zombies. And I think this is good. And I will not let my opponent reanimate this Archon of Cruelty again. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is 7 damage. I'm going to 3. Yeah, I think this is fine. And we will attack with another 2 Icorids and win the game. I think. My opponent may have 2 more good cards there. No, that's it? Okay, so we win. And it feels really good to win the first game against Reanimator because they are favored. So this is good. Let's dredge 5. And now we can attack. Yeah, my opponent concedes. So I'm not familiar with this build. Maybe this is a build with Mono Black Aggro sideboard plan. Unmarked Grave is not a card that sees play in Legacy usually. I'm not finding any recent deck using this card. So okay, let's use our knowledge about Reanimator builds. Leyline of the Void, of course, is a must. And Grief usually I don't like to play Grief on the draw because our opponent, if we have Leyline and Grief in our initial hand, our opponent can just reanimate our Grief, right? So I don't like to have Grief, especially on the draw against Reanimator. And we can consider some copies of Stern Dismissal, although I don't like this card too much, of course. Red Return is going out. Hogak, we can take 1 Icorid here, and probably 1 Daze on the draw. And I think that's it. Instead of taking one Daze, we could side out one Brainstorm. Okay, this seems good. If our opponent has a turn 1 again, we have Leyline of the Void. If our opponent has some disruption, like Unmask or Grief, we have 2 Careful Studies. So this is a keep. Our opponent kept 7 as well. Get in. Okay, we are winning. 20 and 17 life. Grief. Okay, let's press F6 here. Our opponent had a Feed the Swarm. So this is a mono black. And if they used Feed the Swarm to pitch Grief us, it means they probably have another Feed the Swarm in their hand. Is our opponent choosing Instinct with Imp to reanimate Instinct with Imp? Maybe. But this is not a good plan, right? Yeah, my opponent is conceding. If this is the case, my opponent probably should not play the land. Well, we don't know what our opponent was thinking, but let's go to our second game, our second round. Okay, 4 seconds, and we have another opponent. Varis 39. Oops. Okay, this hand is so-so. We have a protection, and we have 2 lands, and we have 2 gazes. This is a slow hand, but we are on the draw again. So we won on the draw against Reanimator, so maybe this is good enough. So we keep. Our opponent kept 7. Tropical Island and pass. Is this a control matchup? If this is the case, we can just discard the Sync Imp to our hand size at the end of the turn. And I think I will do exactly this. I could play Otherworldly Gaze, but since we draw a Daze, yeah, we don't have any draw spells here. So just putting a Sync Imp and passing the turn is not a good play here, because if we had a Brainstorm or a Cephalic Coliseum, this would be much more interesting for me. But just passing the turn without making any progress with my lands, this is not a play I would like to do, so I'll just play Island and pass. And now we have Daze available. And I'm passing the turn, my opponent does nothing. Let's go to his main step, to their main step. And they place, oh no, they are discarding Island. They are cycling Lowering Revealed, so this is a control matchup, indeed. And plays Underground Sea and passing the turn. Okay, so usually control builds are our bread and butter, right? Usually. Forces in this matchup are not particularly good. 3 cards that we want in our graveyard, so we can just put everything in our graveyard. Now we have 1 Archamoeba, and I will cast Otherworldly Gaze again with this trigger on the stack. This is a juicer target for a counterspell. Yeah, Force of Negation. Okay, since we don't have much going on, let's Force of Will this Force of Negation. Okay, this is so good. This is incredibly good. So, I want both. I want both. Do I need both? Probably not, but I want both. Which one I want first? I think I want Brainstorm on top. So on top. This Ichorid will not go back this turn. And now I will not dredge. I will draw my first card. I will play Scouting Turn. Attack with Narcomoeba. And I will not cast Brainstorm this turn. I will wait because I want to draw our Cephalic Coliseum. Because I know that with 3 lands, Brainstorm, Cephalic Coliseum with Daze in my hand, this is almost guarantee a victory. Orcish Bowmasters, this is a Daze. And no lands for our opponent, so yeah. Now we will just draw again. And now we will fetch. Our opponent can have Endurance. I'm not sure. We will not play around Endurance because our opponent seems stuck with 2 lands. So we dredge 5 again, and dredge 6. No bridges yet. So we'll just discard 3 cards. And next turn we can have something else. Now, do I want to sacrifice my Narcomoeba blindly? Naming probably another Bowmasters. I think the answer is no. And if my opponent just pass the turn again without doing nothing, I will probably not dredge. Not until they do a move, because it seems that they can have another Bowmasters and just exile my bridges at instant speed. So we need to be careful at this point of the game. This is already turn 4. Our opponent found a second land, and this represents a second Bowmasters, as I'm suspecting. We have 2 Eco Reads, and this is dangerous to our opponent because we can just bring back both Eco Reads and cast Hogak immediately without attacking. So if they have a Bowmasters, this is the time they should fire a Bowmasters. No. Draw step, dredge 6. No Bowmasters, so we play land and cast Hogak. Let's see what our opponent do. Okay, so we attack with Narcomoeba, and now I will do a play that can show to my opponent that I don't have anything else. I don't want to show that I have Brainstorm, so I will just sacrifice an Eco Read without going further. Let's see if they do a move here. Yeah, just a Brainstorm. Okay. And using Tropical Island, so no Veil of Summer available this turn. Nothing? This can be a Murderous Cut, is a card that is being used since last month, I guess. And my opponent has black mana available, so Murderous Cut. Or, maybe better, I want to resolve this Brainstorm, so this is another Force of Will. Yeah, those are my top choices right now. Force of Will. Daze, Ponder, Spell Pierce, and Stifle. So my opponent can cast Spell Pierce to nullify my Brainstorm. And they can Stifle an Narcomoeba maybe. So let's just Cabal Therapy again. Naming Spell Pierce. Oh, my opponent fires Spell Pierce. Okay. I will not pay, because I just want to resolve this Brainstorm. Dredge 6, Dredge 6, and Dredge 6. We can put 2 Golgari with Trolls on top, 3 Narcomoebas for our trouble. Now we have 3 bridges. I can Cabal Therapy my opponent, sacrificing Hogak. This is the synergy of our deck. Hogak plus Cabal Therapy plus bridges equals to a zombie army. Ponder is the stronger card in my opponent's hand, Ponder. And then I have 1 extra Cabal Therapy, I will do the same. My opponent probably does not have haste creatures, so I can just tap my Narcomoebas to cast the Convoke cost. Cast Hogak with Convoke. And now I'm doing the same. Taking Stifle, because Stifle can be used on an Eco Read trigger or something like that. So Stifle. And now we can cast. Okay, my opponent concedes. It's about time. So this is a Sultai build. They may have or may not have a Wasteland. So Grief is good against control builds. On the play or on the draw, I always play with 3 Grief after sideboarding. And Force of Will is not a great card against control builds, because we, especially on the draw, we don't want to be playing behind for long. We want to keep forward, force our opponent to use their resources, and not we keeping resources to counter back a Force of Will or Force of Negation. So I will not take any threat from my deck. Actually, I will put more threats. Grief can be a threat, and a disruption spell. And Ashen Rider is really good with Dredge Return if my opponent plays Surgical Extraction, because if my opponent gets really lucky with Surgicals or Fairies and take dredgers and maybe bridges or Necromoebas, we can cast Dredge Return targeting Nation Rider and still win the game. So, and Dazes are good only in the beginning of the game to guarantee that we resolve one of our most important spells. So yeah, that's it. Noticeably, my opponent can have Endurance. And against Endurance, we play against Endurance decks. We play as we play against Control decks. Grief is really good to take an early Endurance, and this hand is good. We have more lands than we need now, but having lands is always good against Control because we will keep casting Otherworldly Gazes from our graveyard. So this is a keep. My opponent is having a mulligan to 6, and without drawing our first card, we have an easy play here. Grief and then Careful Study. Since my opponent plays Daze, I will play Underground Sea first. I will not play Flooded Strand because my opponent also have Stifle. So I will keep this for another turn. And I'll keep Hogak because Hogak is, well, a great threat. Let's get rid of Stinkweed Imp. My opponent will Brainstorm here. Okay. Now what? Okay, Grief resolves, and now we can take Daze from our opponent's hand because we want to resolve Careful Study. And our opponent will need to choose between Wasteland holding Spell Pierce or playing up the Beanstalk. Okay, Careful Study. Please, something good. Nothing really good. We will put Hogak and Grave Troll into the bin. Passing the turn. So now this is how a Blue Dredge plays. Because usually Dredge decks cannot play anything else besides Cabal Therapies or Hogak after the first or the second turns. And now we have many plays that we can do. Okay, so this was a Ponder, a Shuffle, and a Wasteland. Okay. So our opponent plays here like a control deck, trying to get rid of our lands. But we have lands for days here. The Necromoebas are great. We don't have nothing to do with them yet. But since our opponent has a bad hand with a Spell Pierce, a useless Spell Pierce this turn, and we have many lands, we can just play Polluted Delta. I will fetch immediately because of Stifle. Basic islands are good. And we can pass the turn here. And Hogak is threatening here to be cast at any point that we find Cabal Therapy. Or two Cabal Therapies. No play for our opponent, so that's great. A control deck without lands is everything you want to see. Only Dredge 4. In this spot, Dredge 4 is not that bad because we can cast Golgari Thug to cast a Hogak after that if we find just another Cabal Therapy with only one bridge in the graveyard. So yeah, not this case, but we can cast Otherworldly Gaze soon. We have dredged our second basic island, so this Flooded Strand will be an Underground Sea. We have only one Underground Sea left in our deck. My opponent may have Stifle. So I'll play this Flooded Strand right now. We can attack for 2. And I will crack this Flooded Strand in my opponent's upkeep. Let's see if they have Stifle or not. Not yet. Nothing? Okay, if I cast Otherworldly Gaze, my opponent will just Spell Pierce, right? But this is not that bad, because we can find another Otherworldly Gaze, and is one less card in our opponent's hand, so we can just focus on discarding up the Beanstalk. So I will cast Otherworldly Gaze into Spell Pierce here, and this is what I was talking about in the sideboarding. Playing against control decks, we want to play our threats and make them use their resources. So we are not a control deck against control decks. We play control when we play against combo like Storm or other builds. But against control, we play on offense. So offensively. So Dredge 6 here. Oh, another bridges, but nothing to do with them yet. We hope that our opponent will not have something like... I will cast a Golgari Thug here. Nothing like a Bowmasters right now, because a Bowmasters will get rid of our 3 bridges. I'm playing Golgari Thug because if something bad happens with our bridges, we want to have two black creatures to cast Hogak from our graveyard. And if anything happens in the future, like our opponent having another wasteland targeting our seas, it's important to deploy our creatures as soon as possible. Dredge 6 again. Now we have a Cabal Therapy. Our opponent will not have a flash creature with only 1 mana, so I will attack first. And then sacrifice an Archamoeba as a cost to Cabal Therapy. Maybe my opponent plays with Veil of Summer. Anyways, I don't care, I just want to cast Cabal Therapy and Hogak this turn. My opponent will go down to 13 life. And we have another, our first Ikorit to come back next turn. So we cast Cabal Therapy targeting our opponent, sacrificing an Archamoeba. It seems like our opponent kept a bad hand with Daze and Wasteland, but nothing after that. So up the beanstalk. 2 forces, a Daze, a Pernicious Deed, a Powder Keg. Okay. So my opponent will probably use Force now, and we are fine. We don't need Hogak to win. You see, I'm using Hogak right now as something to play and force my opponent's hand here. They will use Force here. If I hold Golgari Thug to cast Hogak twice in the same turn, this could be... Oh, my opponent hold Force of Will? Why? I don't understand. This could be a good move, but since control decks sometimes have bounce effects and something, I don't want to rely on Hogak to win. We don't need Hogak to win. We can just push our army, and every time is a good thing to do. We cast Hogak, make some zombies, attack with Hogak if possible. Okay, my opponent found Underground Sea, but this is too late, right? They can get rid of our zombies, but we have 8, 9, 10, 11, 14. Okay, so we won, and we are 2-0. Let's go to round number 3. Enjoying the deck? I encourage you to go check my Patreon, the Dredge Guy. You'll find dozens of articles and comprehensive guides to sideboard your Dredge deck, along with videos with detailed explanations. All of my patrons will also have access to watch my legacy challenges and Magic Online leagues. So I'd like to thank you, my current patrons here on the screen, who support the creations of videos like this one. Now back to the games. Okay, so I'm back with another round of espresso. This is not a good hand because we have only 1 land, 2 Dazes, no Dredgers, 2 Narcomoebas, so this is a mulligan. And we are on the play now for the first time on this league. So this is a mulligan as well. Unfortunately, 2 Brainstorms are not what we want to do on the play. Okay, this is much better. So we keep this, and I will put... do I need Force of Will with 1 Daze? I think I will put an Ikorid is the thing that I want to discard with Careful Study. I will put an Archamoeba and probably Force of Will, since the other cards I can play. Yeah. Unfortunately, we have only Ikorid as a card that we want to discard here. But this is our best hand after 2 mulligans. So, casting Careful Study. Ooh. Another control matchup. Okay, so we will Daze Force of Negation. You love to see it. That's why I always say that Blue Dredge is kind of a graveyard / temple deck. So we unfortunately found nothing, and we passed the turn with 3 lands in our hand. Ponder. You probably noticed that I chose to play Underground Sea instead of fetching for a basic island, and that's because we mulligan to 5. And I don't want to shuffle back my Force of Will and my Narcomoeba now. I want to find my Dredgers and another Enablers. So my opponent chose to not shuffle. This Ikorid will stay there for a while. Brainstorm. Brainstorm is a good card. Do we fire Brainstorm right now? Our opponent can have Orcish Bowmasters. I think we will fire Brainstorm right now. Okay. So we don't need black mana in this matchup. I think we'll put we don't mind to draw another land here. We don't mind, but we don't need it. So I think we'll put Underground Sea and Misty and pass. So we can shuffle Underground Sea and fetch Underground Sea back with Misty after that. Yeah, this smells like a Bowmasters. Interesting enough, if our... oh no, it's a Ponder, okay. Our opponent chooses to Ponder instead of casting Bowmasters. This is when you analyze your opponent and see that they chose to play Underground Sea because they probably had some options, like Bowmasters, Ponder, maybe another 2-drop, like maybe Beans, Beanstalk. But now my opponent just cast Ponder and pass the turn. So maybe my opponent has another Spell Pierce, maybe Daze, maybe Stifle. Oh, do we crack this Misty now? Yes, we do. If they have Stifle, they have Stifle. No Stifle. I will go for Island because our opponent probably plays with Wasteland like our last opponent. Let's try Careful Study first. Okay, this is good for a Force of Will. Using Brainstorm as a pitch, let's try our second Careful Study. This finally resolves and we have 2 Dredgers in our graveyard and we have a Force of Will that maybe or maybe not will be useful in the future. No lands again. What is happening? So do we put this Ichorid in play? I think we still hold Ichorid because our opponent can have Bowmasters, my opponent can have something to get rid of Ichorid and Bone. Okay, we want to hold both Dredgers until we find a third Dredger and maybe an Otherworldly Gaze. Yeah, now we have Golgari Thug and Sneakonim. So next turn we'll put Ichorid into play. No place for us this turn. Our opponent saw our forces. Children's Edict? Why? Okay, they have Uru, maybe? They have Murktide. They have Murktide and they will probably play Murktide Regent. And they needed to guarantee a 5th card. This wasn't needed because now they found a 3rd land, but they didn't know. Murktide is not terrifying right now. We can find blockers for it. We will make some zombies now. We have 3 Dredgers, no black mana, so I will route back 1 Ichorid. Do we high roll this dredging? I think we don't need. We have time. Okay, we found an Archamoeba and an Otherworldly Gaze. We also have 1 Cabal Therapy. Our opponent may play Daze or Spell Pierce. I will cast Cabal Therapy right now, targeting my opponent. My opponent will fetch in response. Okay, Fatal Push my Archamoeba, so I will cast Otherworldly Gaze in response. Okay, so we will get a second zombie. We can put Daze. Okay, since my opponent has nothing else, do I want this Daze to pitch to Force of Will? Do I want to hold both cards on top? Do I want? Maybe I don't. Maybe I don't need it. Yeah. Let's keep only Cephalic Coliseum on top. And now this Cabal Therapy will name Orcish Bowmasters, because it's what we don't want our opponent to have in their hand. Another Children's Edict. Okay. This Dredge Return can target a flyer. Yeah, but my opponent can play the Edict, and this is not a good play. So we hold. Hold! My opponent attacks for 8. No? Okay, that's great news. My opponent probably has nothing, and they are afraid because we have 2 Ichorids. And we... Oh, no, they are not afraid. They just talk to me here. Oops. So this was a misclick. And now my opponent plays an edict. Okay. I appreciate that you are using your spells at this point of the game loosely. So, since I know that I have Cephalic Coliseum on top, I don't need to bring Icarid right now. I want to have at least one of them, but I don't have any therapies. I will high roll this and bring one Icarid back, because I have another Otherworldly Gaze if things get weird. Yeah, I think this is better. So we can attack first. My opponent blocks a zombie token, okay. Takes 5 damage. And in my second main phase, I will crack Coliseum targeting myself. I will dredge 5, dredge 6, and dredge 6 again. 2 extra Narcomoebas. I can discard 1 Troll and 2 Imps. We have blockers for Daze. I will cast a Cabal Therapy targeting my opponent, sacrificing Icarid. I think they have nothing, but I will name Force of Will. Just a Murderous Cut, but no good targets, and they cannot play it. I could cast a Dread Return here, just to have more zombies. Instead of a blocker, I can have a big Grave Troll. I think this is better at this point of the game. You see that I'm sacrificing 2 Narcomoebas, so my Grave Troll can see 2 extra bodies in the graveyard. And now I can pass the turn. I imagine my opponent will concede after this turn. Even if they cast Murderous Cut, I can just regenerate Golgar Grave Troll. Yeah, my opponent concedes. And the way I will do my sideboard here is the same that last round. It seems more or less the same deck. So 3 Griefs, 1 Ashen Rider, and we can take 4 forces out from our deck and submit. Okay, so this is a bad hand. Mulligan. My opponent kept 7. Okay, this is not good, but we can't keep. But this is not great. But yeah. This would be really good at 7. But this is not so good at 6. We will get rid of a Breach. Okay, so I will not cast Careful Study yet. I will try to cast a Brainstorm in my opponent's upkeep. Okay, my opponent fires a Brainstorm right now, so I'll do the same. Oh, 2 Griefs are really good. Okay, so let's see. What is my plan? Next turn, I will cast a Grief. I want to have a Careful Study and 2 Thugs. So I can just put Icarid and Dredge Return back. This Icarid will be draw. I will draw Icarid with Careful Study. I do not need Dredge Return. Yeah. Let's keep everything. It's fine. And I can decide if I want to Grief twice or only once. Okay, this is an obvious Bowmasters. So, do I play Grief, sacrifice, pitching Icarid or Thug? Let's get rid of 1 Icarid. Because this is a control matchup and my opponent is holding 6 cards. So I think Grief is really good here. My opponent will probably cast Orb Masters or Veil of Summer or Brainstorm in response. This is actually really good for us because now we can get rid of whatever our opponent has and then resolve Careful Study. And maybe something else. Okay, no answer from our opponent. Let's see what they have in their hand. Oh, I stifle. Okay, no problem. Not a problem. Let's try again, shall we? Now this is good to a force effect, okay. And now we play Cephalic Coliseum and a Careful Study. We can even... We know that we have a Dread Return on top. So probably doesn't matter here, 1 point of damage. if we draw exactly Cabal Therapy, it's good to have a black mana available, so I will pay 1 life here. No Cabal Therapy, but another Grief, okay? Maybe our opponent has something like Surgical Extraction. If they do, they will probably get rid of Gogai Thug. No Wasteland, that's good news. Okay, I don't know why you have this card against me. So Dredge 4. Yeah, that's good. So let's cast our 3rd Grief this game. This is turn 3 and we already found our 3 Griefs. Griefs? Griefs? Or 3 copies of Grief. Okay, since we will cast probably a Dredge Return or Cabal Therapy this turn, let's take this Spell Pierce. In response to this Evoke trigger, let's crack Coliseum. Dredge 6, and Dredge 5. And we are good to go. Okay, Torok gets bigger and bigger. But we have blockers for days, for months. And this is interesting because I can cast Dredge Return targeting Ashen Rider, but I cannot target Turok because he has a protection from white. But I can get rid of one of their lands. So 2 actually, because I have a Cabal Therapy. So let's bring back Ashen Rider. And double Stone Rain is good, especially 3. My opponent agrees and concedes the game. Okay. So we are 3-0 and with a perfect score so far. Let's go to our next match. Okay. Okay, now this is not a good keep on the draw or even on the play. So mulligan. Okay, this is not great, but we of course can keep with 2 forces. We can put Cabal Therapy back. We keep. Otherworldly Gaze is what makes this hand keepable. But now they have only a Flooded Strength, so we never know. Let's play Island and pass. Misty and pass. Maybe this is another control player. I hope so. Okay, this is a Force of Will. Pitching Dress down. Do I want to force back? Yes, I want. Okay. And now we dredge 5. No dredgers, unfortunately, so I will probably only cast Otherworldly Gaze in my opponent's end step again. Vulcan Island. And we can also Praxify the Coliseum, trying to find a blue spell if we feel we need blue spell. My opponent plays Dress Down. Maybe my opponent is playing with something like I just forgot the name now of that card, the 12/12 Trampler. Maybe? Even if that's the case, I don't need to worry too much. I'm just thinking here if I try to force something. Maybe this is just a cantrip. Okay, let's just resolve this. I don't mind if my opponent just forces one of my gazes from... Yeah, nothing else? Okay. If my opponent wants to just force another Otherworldly Gaze, it's not a problem. Okay, so you sacrifice Dress Down. And now I will cast Otherworldly Gaze. This is a good Force of Negation target. No, just a cycling. Okay. Xander's Lounge. So they have a black mana as well. This is really good. So Bridge from below to the graveyard and Cephalic the Coliseum on top, Careful Study on top. We play Careful Study. Great, we still have one blue card. That's amazing. We crack here. And Dredge 5, and Dredge 6. And we discard our 3 Dredgers. Unfortunately, no Narcos, but we have a Force of Will in our hand with a blue card. Nothing? Okay, maybe this is a Bowmasters, so we need to be careful. I will still just dredge 6 here. No Narcos. This is weird. This is really weird. I think I have to do it, but my opponent has multiple elements. Maybe they have only Swords to Plowshares and white removal. And yeah, we cannot wait too much. Let's crack Cephalic Coliseum. We have only 19 cards in our deck and no Narcomoebas yet. Yeah, the first one, Dredge 6. Another one. Now we have only 7 cards in our deck. We have one extra Narco, but I think 2 Narcos is good, so I will just draw naturally here. Oh, the third Narco, okay. Classic. So let's discard the 3 Grave Trolls. Put 1 Narco in the battlefield, and the second. Now we cast Cabal Therapy targeting our opponent. We have 4 bridges. No, they don't have anything else? Okay, so this is a Force of Will. Yeah, and a Terminus, okay. And I will not take this Terminus from our opponent's hand because they can just put Terminus on top with Mystical Sanctuary. So I will just cast Hogak here. Actually, since they can do this play and I have Force of Will and my opponent have nothing else, I can do this safely, right? I'm just overthinking this. So let's cast Hogak. Since this will be my opponent's only choice and we have a Force of Will, we already won this. So let's take this Terminus. My opponent, of course, doesn't know that. They don't know that. So Terminus. Okay. And now we can just go to town, exiling lands and counter spells. We can even cast Dredge Return here. We don't need to do it, but we can. Why not? So I'll bring a large troll to the battlefield. Just to put pressure on my opponent to do the Terminus play and ruin their hopes and dreams. Okay, passing the turn. Yeah, Mystical Sanctuary, I suppose. Uh-huh. Oh, it's a miracle. Even if we don't have Force of Will in this spot, we could just win with Icorids if we had them. I don't see any Icorids, so yeah. We have 2 Icorids in the last 6 cards, so that's awful. We had some bad luck in this game and we won anyways. GG's. Let's go to our next game. And this is a control matchup, and against control, I like to do my sideboarding the same, just 3 Griefs and 3 Grief and 1 Ashen Rider. But sometimes we play differently because now my opponent has white removal. White is the color of Swords to Plowshares, maybe Leyline Binding, Terminus, maybe Prismatic Ending. So they have lots and lots of removal, so we need to push our threats wisely. But the sideboarding is the same. Against green decks, we play more on the control side, trying to. I mean, we obviously will not have Force of Will. I'm not saying control side like controlling with counter spells, but playing wisely, choosing to first flashback an Otherworldly Gaze if we think this is better to do instead of deploying a threat. And with playing against white, sometimes I will not bring back an Icorid, for example, to just be exiled to Swords to Plowshares from my opponent. We need to watch what my opponent is keeping open. White mana all the time, red mana all the time. Maybe they have Pyroblast, maybe they have Sword to Plowshares, etc, etc. So, but the sideboarding is the same. This is almost good. With a single blue enabler, this hand would be a keep. Without a blue enabler, I don't like it, so mulligan. No lands, no keep, mulligan. Okay, this is the best hand so far. We keep, we put, okay, I want to Grief. I have a black spell. I don't need Cougar Grief Troll, so I can put Daze and Grief Troll in the bin, and I will shuffle back them with my fetch land. Yeah, Ponder is fine. My opponent chooses to not shuffle. And now we have 2 layers of protection to resolve this Otherworldly Gaze. Okay, Dredger. We want to find our second land with this Otherworldly Gaze. This is really needed. So let's first, yeah, let's bridge. Any counterspell here will be dazed. Endurance, okay, and a counterspell. So of course I will take Endurance here. And now I crack Scalding Tarn, a basic island, and an Otherworldly Gaze. I think my opponent will try to counter it. Yeah. Now they have only an Uro, and I will Daze this Force of Will. Now you see why I keep Daze even on the draw against control. Because we want to resolve our first spells. And then that's okay. Okay, so we found our second land and a Careful Study. That's great. Nakomiba will be put into our graveyard. I'll put Underground Sea on top and Careful Study on top. Misty and Pass. Island and Careful Study. I should attack first. Okay, this is great. Let's attack. We already have another Otherworldly Gaze in our graveyard. My opponent will probably cast Uro. Taiga. Another Daze would be excellent here. At least we don't have any bridge to be exiled with Uro's ability, with Uro's death. My opponent will probably play Volcanic Island now, yeah? And now they have 2 unknown cards. And I will dredge 6 here. A Hogak, but nothing going on. My opponent can be holding a Pyroblast or something like Spell Pierce, but I will cast Otherworldly Gaze right now before they do, before they have any other draw spells. 2 extra Narcos, okay. And now we just attack for 1 damage. Because my opponent can have another Endurance and another green mana or another green card. So that's why I opted to cast Otherworldly Gaze right away. Okay, my opponent plays another land and probably will just cast Uro. We'll escape Uro from the graveyard. Mystic Sanctuary first, so they will draw Ponder with Uro's ability. Yeah. Uro comes back, draws a card, gain 3 life. My opponent's coming back to 20 life and casts Ponder. And see, we have 2 mana, but I will not cast Otherworldly Gaze in my upkeep. Otherworldly Gaze is better. My opponent chooses to shuffle. That's good. Because I don't want to draw anything here. I want to maybe draw something in my next turn. So here is a Dredge 6. Okay, no bridges, no Cabal Therapies. No Endurance for our opponent. I will immediately cast this Otherworldly Gaze. My opponent is thinking maybe they have something. Yeah, they have a Force. You see, we are playing cards trying to open holes in my opponent's wall. So I will attack with 3 Narcomoebas. I'm not interested in blocking because I don't have any bridges yet. And keep in mind that I opted to pitch a Bridge from Below in our first turn to Grief. So now we have only 3 of them. Yeah, I will not block. You gain 3 life, draw a card, deploy a land. Okay, this Ichorid will come back. We can get rid of 1 Dredger actually. I can leave Grief there, just in case it is interesting to cast a Dredge Return targeting Grief. Sometimes it's a play we can do. Okay, now we have 1 Cabal Therapy. So it is wise to our opponent to just target Ichorid with a white removal here, because if they don't, I will just take the white removal from their hand. I will name Source to Plowshares here. Yeah, and they have it. Yeah, you see, sometimes we play the deck, and we play the deck, and we get wiser in our choices. Casting Cabal Therapy is an art. And now I will attack with... do I want to hold those Narcomoebas? I'm not sure. Because I have only one bridge. Yeah, I'll hold at least one. I don't want to sacrifice all of them right now, because we can block Uro with 3 Narcomoebas just to have 3 extra zombies, but this is too soon for that. An extra Mystic Sanctuary, maybe? No? Okay, no lands. My opponent found what? 1 blue mana, 1 green or red mana, no? Blue? Red? Another blue? No? Another Uro, okay. If this is the play, I'm not sure if they should do this before attacking. But I'm not an expert playing control, so I think they could attack first and maybe cast the second Uro after attacking, but I'm not sure. Because now I know that I don't have any bridge from below to protect. So if they attack with Uro, I will just block with Hogak. But if they attack first, I'll probably just block with Narcomoeba. Their Uro will be safe. Yeah. Just Cycling Lorry revealed. Okay. So they have nothing. Again, I'm not sure why they are doing this right now. They want to play Tropical after attacking. And this is a guaranteed block because they already have another Uro that they can play. So I have no reason to not block this Uro, to not block this Uro. Okay, so they cast Uro again. And we don't have a great attack here. Let's see what our dredging will find. We have 28 cards in our deck. This Ichorid will come back. I will exile Instinct with Imp again. We can dredge 6. Okay, we found an Ashen Rider and another bridge. So I'm inclined to attack with Hogak here, because my opponent can easily find something to get rid of Hogak soon. Some white removal, some terminals, I don't know. So I will probably just attack here with Hogak, Ichorid, Zombie, Zombie, Narco, Narco. Okay, this is not good. My opponent should block a Zombie token, because this is only 1 damage. And now I have 1 extra Zombie. We found 2 Otherworldly Gazes. We have 2 more in our deck. I will block with Narcomoeba because now I have 1 extra Zombie. And we stay with a healthy 13 life. My opponent has 14 life. We have more than 14 damage coming next turn, so they need something. If they Terminus, we will attack with 2 Ichorids for 6 damage. What else? Blue? Up the Beanstalk, okay. My opponent is casting something. Ponder. Let's see if they shuffle or not. Chooses to shuffle. My opponent chooses to shuffle the deck. Plays Flooded Strand. They need 2 extra cards in the graveyard to cast their second Uro. Now they play 4 lands. Loring revealed. Okay, drawing 4 cards. I'll just press F6 here. I have nothing. And now they have what? Ponder, okay. So this probably means that we win. They already played a land. Yeah, we won. Hi guys, I'm back. 2 yoga classes and a dinner later. Let's finish this league before sleeping. So far, so good. Okay, and we are playing against Lantariel. I don't remember playing against this player before. They are thinking about taking the play or the draw. Okay. Okay, so this is one of the rare cases that being on the draw is a possibility to just discard a Daze and Grief draw in our end step. And we also have a good play in our second turn with Brainstorm, and also a Force of Will with a blue card to pitch. So I will keep this hand. It's not great by any means, but I don't think this is a mulligan. As I always say, playing Dredge, or specifically Blue Dredge. Oh, and it is an Urza Saga, so maybe this Force of Will is not that good. Playing Blue Dredge, you don't want to take the draw intentionally, but when you are on the draw, hands like this are keepable because you can just discard a Dredger and also have a solid plan on turn 2. So let's just pass the turn here. And if our opponent plays with an Urza Saga deck with a main deck Soul Guide Lantern, this can be hard. Okay, City of Traitors. We will just dredge 6 here. Okay. I'll play Scalding Tarn. I think my opponent probably don't have Wasteland, so I'll just fetch for an Underground Sea, because later I can cast Cabal Therapy from my hand, and let's Brainstorm. Dredge 6, Dredge 5, and Dredge 4, one of each. 2 Narcos, just 1 Therapy, but no Bridges yet, so I don't have any Dredgers right now in the bin. And 2 Eco Reads. So I have some options here. I can cast a blind Cabal Therapy targeting my opponent, but I never liked this idea because my opponent obviously have nothing going on besides this Urza Saga, so I don't know yet what they are playing. I don't have any Dredgers in my graveyard, so I can have a natural draw next turn and cast Cabal Therapy targeting myself. But this is too slow, so I believe I will cast this Cabal Therapy. I will spend this Cabal Therapy targeting myself this turn. I will show my Force of Will to my opponent just to have Dredgers in the graveyard. And then next turn, maybe we can find some Force of Will or... yeah. On the other hand, my opponent maybe they have Soul Guide Lantern in their deck, so in that case it's useful to not spend too many of my resources now. Yeah, it's difficult. Let's put our 2 black creatures on top. Narcomoeba. Okay, my opponent is creating their token. And my Narcos enter the battlefield. Many of these artifact decks, many of them don't actually have Soul Guide Lantern in the main deck, only in the sideboard. So I'll cast a Cabal Therapy targeting myself right now. And if they have it, they have it. So Grave Troll. We are already behind in this game. So I'm showing everything to my opponent, my Force of Will, my Hogak. So now they know what they can expect. But I believe this is the strongest play. If we had a 4th Dredger in our graveyard after Brainstorm, I will not play like that, of course. Okay, it's just Shadow Spear. That's great news for us. Lotus Petal, it's okay. I will not force this. Another land, okay. A Thoughtcast. This I'll force. So this is maybe 8th cast, yeah, with Emery. And my opponent don't have... my opponent should cast Emery after the attack, right? Because the construct was a 5-5 and now it's just a 4-4. So I'll let this construct hit me for 4 damage. And now I will keep Icorids. I could bring back one Icorid, exiling the second one, but I don't want to do that. I don't think this is a strong play, because I want many zombies to block trample creature as soon as possible, and maybe this Hogak. And I have a Cabal Therapy in my hands, so we'll get Grief Troll. Yeah, and we found our first bridge, and we have 2 black creatures to be exiled to Icorids, to both Icorids. Unfortunately, I have only 1 Cabal Therapy this turn. One possible play here to just cast Hogak this turn, and this is like a big brain play, is to cast Cabal Therapy targeting myself, naming Cabal Therapy, and then playing both Cabal Therapy, sacrificing my 2 Narcomoebas just to cast Hogak. This is like a big brain play, and I kind of like it. This is like non-intuitive, but I kind of like to have a big Hogak this turn before Emery can just build too much value here. So let's attack first. I believe this is the first time I do this play. Cabal Therapy myself, naming Cabal Therapy. I believe this is my first time. We always have a first time, right? Doing something new. Even if I have so much experience with this deck, we always have a first time, and this is the first time. So Cabal Therapy targeting myself, naming Cabal Therapy. Now I'll cast my first Cabal Therapy targeting my opponent, sacrificing an Narcomoeba. I'm inclined to just name Thoughtcast or Thought Monitor here. So Thought Monitor. Yeah. And then last is Otawara, so Otawara can bounce or Hogak. But our opponent so far doesn't have enough mana to do it. Grave Troll. They can have more mana soon. Just an Ancient Tomb or City of Traitors is enough. Or even a Mox Opal and another land. But this is our best play. It's unfortunate that our opponent has exactly Otawara, but it is what it is. Maybe you can draw just a Force of Will or something useless. And then we will route back our both Icorids and start creating the zombie army. Yeah, our opponent just plays Otawara, okay. Now what? Shadow Spear, okay. No attacks? No attacks. This is great news. So bring back Icorid number 1 and Icorid number 2. And we dredge 6. Okay, 2 more bridges. We are deep into our deck. I will not attack because I don't want to kill any creature from my opponent, even if this means to wait one more turn. My opponent has a healthy 19 life here, so I'll just pass the turn to have 6 more zombies. Next turn I can bring back only 1 Icorid. I also don't want my opponent to have 6 more life here. Now Thought Monitor is coming back from the graveyard, from the ashes. My opponent draws 2. A bubble, okay. A tomb. No attacks? Okay, so let's do some math here. If I attack, my opponent will gain 8 life, going to 27. My maximum damage here, if they don't have any other blockers, would be 27. But I will let them attack me for 8 more, so I don't have any attack here. I will bring back one of my Icorids. I have 1 black creature here, unfortunately only 1. And now I will dredge 6. And a dredge return. This is actually really good because now I can sacrifice Hogak Unfortunately, we don't have a good target here. We have Narcomoeba and another Ichorid if I just want to build to increase my my number of zombies. If I do this, I'll sacrifice Hogak, Ichorid, and another zombie, and I will have at the end 9 more zombies. I have 8. I will have 16, and my Hogak will be back. Yeah, I believe this is the best I can do this turn before my opponent starts attacking me, and I need to exile my bridges to survive. So yeah, this is a weird play, another weird play in this game, but I will roll back an Ichorid here just to have more zombies, sacrificing 3 creatures. Let's see if my opponent has a counterspell. I don't think so, but maybe. Even if they do, maybe this is too narrow to counter. I will cast Hogak, exiling useless cards from my graveyard, and I pass the turn. Can I attack here? My opponent will go back to 20, will go up to 27. I can just, no, I don't have a good attack yet, but next turn, I'll have. Next turn, I'll probably bring back Ichorid, exiling Ichorid. I'm not a mathematician, but I think we are still on the game. Emery can target Bubble or Petal. Another Emery just to sacrifice my bridges. So you see, that's why I chose to cast my Dredge Return before something like that could happen. Mishra's Bubble. Chalice for 1, okay, so my opponent has a construct with 9, a 9/9 construct with lifelink. No attacks yet. My opponent is holding themselves, and now I need this Ichorid. Let's do some math again. My opponent has nothing, right? No blue mana, so no Otawara. I don't need to worry about some bouncing spell. My opponent has 3 blockers. So if I brought back 1 Ichorid, my opponent can block Hogak, 1 Ichorid, and 1 zombie. 15 zombies will pass. 15 zombies represents 30 damage. My opponent will go back to 28. So I believe this is lethal. This is a lethal attack. Yeah, Ichorid can come back. I will dredge 5. A couple of therapy, okay, and let's attack. You see how Blue Dredge has these little decisions each turn. Do I cast Dredge Return targeting what? Cabal Therapy myself, Cabal Therapy my opponent. Naming what? Cast an Otherworldly Gaze. When? What I'm looking for. What do I'm looking for? Etc. Yeah, my opponent is doing some math and realizing they don't have a choice. And we won the first game. Now, if I remember correctly, 8cast players don't usually play with Leyline of the Void. We could bring Stern Dismissals to our game just as a tempo play, to bounce Urza Saga, for example, or even a construct. Grief is excellent because they usually play, nowadays they usually play Fairy Macabre, sometimes even Surgical, so Grief is good. I don't want Daze on the draw against 8cast, they have lots of mana. And Ashen Rider is kind of okay, especially on the play. On the draw, Ashen Rider is worse because we are 1 turn behind. Ashen Rider can exile an Urza Saga or some weird artifact, or even Emery if we need to exile some value card from our opponent. But it is especially good on the play. On the draw, sometimes we don't have the chance to find Ashen Rider in time. But I will play Ashen Rider even that way. I will take 1 Brainstorm because they have Chalice, so one mana spells are not so good. we have only Force of Will on the draw to protect ourselves from Chalice on 1. And we have Grief to protect ourselves from other cards like Force of Will and maybe Fairy Macabre or sometimes Surgical Extraction. Maybe our opponents now have access to Soul Guide Lantern as well. This is almost really good. I'll keep only because we have Force of Will with our best pitch, which is Narcomoeba. And then Brainstorm plus Careful Study maybe put us into the game. So let's keep this. Our opponent also kept 7. And at this point of the game, I want to force Emery or Chalice. Patchwork Automaton. Do I care? Do I care? Usually we can just block Patchwork Automaton forever, so I think I don't care and I will let it resolve. Automaton does not have trample, and 8-casts usually don't have that many. Oh, another Narcomoeba is awful. Usually 8-casts don't have any removal spells, only bounce spells, sometimes Dismember. Let's cast Careful Study. It resolves. We don't have many good plays here. I don't want to discard Narcomoebas. I would discard Ichorid. I don't want to discard Otherworldly Gaze because it's our best play next turn. Maybe I need to discard. It is really interesting to have 3 lands because we can just cast Stinkweed Imps later in the game and do really good, strong blockers, barricade against our opponent's creatures. So I'll discard the Narcomoeba, sadly, and pass the turn. We have a strong sequence next turn, which is Otherworldly Gaze with Brainstorm after that. If this Otherworldly Gaze resolves and we find Dredgers, this Brainstorm with 2 or 3 lands, 3 lands on turn 3. This is really good and safe. We can cast Otherworldly Gaze again. Maybe this Brainstorm finds us other pieces. This is not a strong start for our opponents, so I'm inclined to think that they have a graveyard hate in their hand. It's not guaranteed, but I'm inclined to think that they have. They are thinking too much. Or maybe they have 2 different paths here. To cast other artifacts, or maybe a Thought Cast. Maybe they have a Force of Will and only 1 other blue card. Or Pithy Needle, okay. Yeah, you can resolve this Pithy Needle. The only card name that they can, the only card that they can name here is Cephalic Coliseum. There is no other card. And we don't have any Cephalic Coliseums right now, so this is not a problem. Yeah, Cephalic Coliseum, my opponent chose a good name. I think I care about this Thought Cast, so I will cast Force of Will right now. I don't want to let my opponent have this card advantage at this point. Unfortunately, we have now only 2 Narcomoebas and 1 Ichorid, so I will, with this trigger on the stack, I will cast Otherworldly Gaze. Let's see if this resolves. Okay, Cephalic Coliseum, unfortunately it is useless right now. Maybe later in the game, because we can always bring back Ashen Rider targeting Pithy Needle, exiling Pithy Needle, but right now we will put everything into our graveyard. This Ichorid needs to wait a little bit longer. But it is turn 2 and we are playing some Magic. My opponent probably has Surgical or Fairy Macabre because this is a long pause. Really long. Okay, decided to let it go. I will dredge 4. We found 2 dredgers. Now, if I cast a Brainstorm, this is it's a juicy target for my opponent if they have Fairy Macabre. And it's not that bad for us if they do, because we have Otherworldly Gaze, maybe fighting another Brainstorm or Careful Study next turn. So I will play Brainstorm right now. Let's see if our opponent can do something. No? Okay. 1, 2, 3 Dredgers. No Narcos, of course, it makes sense. I will put Grave Troll and Tug on top and pass the turn. And we found 3 Bridges and 2 Icorids, with many black creatures to pitch 2 Icorids, so next turn we can, and even Hogak. So if our opponent has something like Surgical or Fairy Macabre targeting Icorid, we can cast Golgari Thug from our hand. Thought Monitor, okay. And those Ancient Tombs are doing some good work for us. Our opponent already have 14 life. As I said before, I don't care that much about Patchworker Automaton. This is just a giant creature without trample. It is good with the equipment, Shadow Spear, but without it, we don't care that much. Because next turn, if our opponent cannot do anything to stop us, we'll have at least 6 zombies, maybe more than 10 zombies if I sacrifice a Golgari Thug and Hogak with multiple therapies. Okay, my opponent has only 1 card in their hand. They using Bubble to see our hand. They know that we have a 3rd land. Now we are on 10 life. And I kind of want to just dredge 5 here to cast this Stink with Imp, to have a Death Toucher blocker. I don't think it is needed, but I kind of want it because this situation here, Stink with Imp, is a really good creature to have in play. Let's see if our opponent draws something useful or not. Okay, nothing. So I will put Icorid into play, Daze and Grief, and the second Icorid, Daze and Grief. Okay, I think I will dredge 6 because I can just cast Golgari Thug from my hand. Let's dredge all we can. We found another Cabal Therapy, which is great, and an Narcomoeba. Since my opponent doesn't have any Chalice on 1, I can cast Cabal Therapy freely. So, I will not attack, of course. Let's try to cast Hogak. Adding some cards. If possible, you don't need to exile Narcomoeba, because you can always sacrifice Golgari Thug or having Golgari Thug dying on combat, and then you can put a Narcomoeba back on top to have a free creature next turn again. So I have 2 Cabal Therapies. I will cast one of them, targeting my opponent, having 3 zombies, unless my opponent have some crazy play here. They have some play. Dismember their own creature after I have in my zombies. This is really weird. Okay, maybe this is a late thought. My opponent realized that they need to kill their own creature. It's okay. Now we have we don't have our bridges anymore, but we have lots of zombies, and my opponent has only a Patchwork Automaton. Yeah, maybe my opponent is not that experienced in this matchup. Sometimes people just don't know how to play against Dredge because it's so different from everything else, right? So this Cabal Therapy targeting my opponent, we'll name another Thought Monitor maybe? I'm not sure because they probably could cast another Thought Monitor, so maybe this is not the right name here. Another Dismember? Yeah, but maybe they draw another Thought Monitor, right? Because they had a draw in my turn, so a Thought cast, another Thought. So let's cast Hogak again. We exile Careful Study, Brainstorm, Island Brainstorm, and Force of Will. And now I will play Underground Sea. I will cast Golgari Thug as a blocker. And I will cast Cabal Therapy targeting my opponent, sacrificing an Icorid. I have 2 black creatures next turn to bring back both Icorids. I will name Thoughtcast. Yeah. And now I can pass the turn without attacking. No more zombies, but we have many creatures here. We don't need to worry too much. Yeah, and our opponent concedes, and we have a 5-0. We have a trophy. I wasn't expecting to win a trophy now, because I'm returning to play after some weeks playing really just a few games here and there. But yeah, this is a 5-0, so let's talk a little bit about the deck. And this is actually a flawless victory without losing a single game, so stellar results for us here. So let's return to details, and let's talk a little bit about the deck. So yeah, I kind of think Blue Dredge is really good. It is really well positioned in this metagame. Sometimes people think on Dredge as a combo deck, purely as a combo deck, and people who think that way are not right anymore, because as you saw, you can play with Dredge in a slightly different way, with some tempo plays, having counter spells, waiting for the right moment to explode your graveyard, to having more creatures to disrupt your opponent little by little. I like to think that Blue Dredge is a card advantage deck, because we play with our graveyard and with our hand. Other Dredge decks with LED, Lion's Eye Diamond, usually like to have this big turn 1 play or this big turn 2 play, and after that you will just slow Dredge until you cannot Dredge anymore. So you really need to have a good hand with a second game, or a second possibility if you match some disruption for our opponent from your opponent, like Force of Will, like Endurance or Surgical Extraction or anything else. And now you have this opportunity to, okay, my opponent disrupted my game plan, exiling my graveyard, but I still have 4 cards in my hand, and I can come back the game and win. As we saw playing against Reanimator, against 8cast, and 3 different control decks, 2 of them really different, one with white, one without white, but we have game against many different different archetypes from the metagame. We didn't find any use to Mindbreak Trap this league, and both Mindbreak Traps are what I say as flex spots. You don't need to use Mindbreak Trap. It's just something that I'm using right now, but maybe 1 week from now I decided to have Fairy Macabre against Svali Breakfast, for example, or maybe No Rods. No Rods are really good when you have a metagame with many artifact decks, but we don't need No Rod to win, but they are good against especially the One Ring decks, or maybe anything that you feel that you need. If you have many green decks in your metagame, lands or decks with Elvish Reclaimer and Bojuka Bog, maybe you want 2 or 3 Leyline of Sanctity in your sideboard. And if you want to know more and more and more about this archetype that I love, you can be my patron. Check my Patreon page, my homepage on Patreon, to see complete sideboard guides, to read many articles that I write in English, so you can learn any little detail about this deck, about this strategy. I have full guides, dozens and dozens of articles, and some videos, and more videos from now on. So that's it. Let's dredge. I hope you enjoyed this video. You know, this is my first video here on YouTube as well, so you can like, subscribe, you know the drill. Okay? See you next time.